When you picture our ancient ancestors, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For most of us, a really specific and, frankly, pretty famous image pops into our heads. Yeah, it's almost always the club-wielding, grunting caveman, isn't it? It's a caricature that's so powerful it's become our default setting for early human. We see it everywhere in movies and cartoons. It's just sort of baked into our culture. But what if that whole picture is just wrong? What if we've been massively underestimating the minds that literally laid the groundwork for our own? So in this explainer, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to dismantle that old stereotype piece by piece. Using the latest research, we can finally replace that cartoon with a scientifically grounded and honestly way more incredible portrait of who our ancestors really were. First up, let's talk about dinner. The classic image is man the hunter, right? This heroic figure taking down giant beasts with a spear. But the actual evidence, it points to a much cleverer and far more opportunistic beginning. So the big shift here is all about the target. The old idea was that we were hunting for protein, for the meat. But new evidence suggests our ancestors were actually after something else entirely, high-energy fat, the kind that was locked away inside bones where no other predator could get to it. Researchers even have a name for this, the human predatory pattern, or HPP, and its origin story isn't about slicing steaks off a fresh kill. It's about being smart enough to get to the leftovers, the best part of the leftovers, first. And when you stop and think about it, this is just brilliant. You let the apex predators, the saber-toothed cats, do all the dangerous work. They'd eat the meat, but they couldn't crack open the bones to get to the calorie-rich marrow and brains inside. Our ancestors figured out that with a simple stone tool and a good smash, they could access this incredible untapped food source. They weren't just hunters, they were genius-level problem solvers. And this new food source created a totally new problem. A problem which in turn may have sparked one of the most important innovations in all of human history, language. I mean, really think about it. Imagine you're a single hominin, you find a massive carcass. It's a food jackpot, but it's also surrounded by danger. You absolutely cannot handle this alone. So how do you get the word out and assemble a crew for the job? You need something called displaced communication. Now, this isn't just a simple alarm call, like shouting danger when you see a lion. This is the incredible ability to talk about something that's not here, not happening right now. It's the difference between seeing a lion and telling a story about the lion you saw yesterday over the hill. That's a huge cognitive leap. And the whole process basically plays out like a high-stakes heist. A scout has to find the score, return to camp, and then somehow communicate really complex information. I found a massive food source, it's that way, it's super dangerous, we need at least 10 of us. This required a basic, syntax-free proto-language, a shared set of symbols to coordinate a complex life-or-death mission. So just think about what that means. Language probably didn't emerge so we could sit around and ponder the stars. It was a pragmatic tool. It was a piece of survival technology, invented to organize a group and secure a meal. And you know what? Language wasn't the only sophisticated tool they came up with. This brings us to our final myth, the idea that ancient art was just pretty pictures. In reality, it was another incredibly powerful technology for thinking and for surviving. Take a look at this. These aren't just random dots on a wall. Researchers now believe this rock art from northeast Mexico might actually be a lunar calendar, possibly used to track the gestation cycles of prey animals. This isn't just decoration. This is data visualization. This is scientific observation encoded on stone for everyone to see. This reframes everything we thought we knew about art. It wasn't some luxury they could afford in their spare time. It was a fundamental cognitive tool. It was a way to externalize memory, to store and transmit complex information that was absolutely critical for the group's survival. And if you want to understand just how vital this was, consider this. There's a site in Patagonia where a single art tradition lasted for over 8,200 years. Let that number just sink in for a second. That is about 130 generations of people, all passing down the same artistic system, the same visual language. And what's truly mind-blowing is that this happened during a period of extreme, chaotic climate instability. So you have to ask the question, why would people facing immense stress, people on the brink, invest so much energy in art for so long? Because it was a social technology. For these small, scattered groups, the art was their cultural glue. It was a shared visual language that transmitted essential survival knowledge and reinforced their group identity across vast distances and terrifyingly difficult times. It literally held their entire society together. And it wasn't just for documenting the external world, it was also technology for exploring the internal world. There's a fascinating theory that many of the geometric patterns we see in rock art, all those zigzags and grids, are actually things the human brain is hardwired to see in altered states of consciousness. So that art might not just be a picture of a hunt, but a record of their deepest neurological experiences, an attempt to map the very structure of the mind itself. So, when we put all of this together, that old, brutish caricature of the caveman completely falls apart, and a much richer, more complex, and more human portrait of our ancestors emerges. We've gone from heroic hunters to clever scavengers. We've moved past simple grunters to tactical communicators pulling off a heist. And we've realized art wasn't just decoration, it was a critical cognitive toolkit for survival. This new picture shows us ancestors who were profoundly pragmatic, deeply intellectually curious, and unbelievably resilient. They weren't defined by brute force. They were defined by their ingenuity, their creativity, and their ability to solve complex problems by working together. You know, our ancestors literally built their worlds out of symbols and stories. And that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? What worlds are we building with ours?